Welcome to Promote Profit Publish. I'm your host, Juliet Clark, and today we have our first panel of 2026, and we have a lot of amazing creators who have put together AI programs that'll help you writers stream. And I want to mention before we get started, come into this with an open mind, please, because I know so many of you guys, you don't want to write your books, you don't like AI, you feel like it takes the creative process away. But there are a lot of tasks that we're going to talk about today that are outside of writing the actual manuscript, where you can streamline so much of what you do. And with Gary and Adana, it's author platform building. And there's no reason why you have to slog through it when you have programs that actually help you get everything together. So let's get started. So we have plenty of time to get some questions with these guys. Let me introduce everybody. First of all, we have Tracy Hazard, who is a seasoned media expert with over 2,600 interviews from articles in Authority Magazine, BuzzFeed, and her Inc. magazine column, and from her multiple top-ranked video casts and podcasts like The Binge Factor and Feed Your Brand. So Tracy brings a real diversity to all of this because podcasting and authorship can be one and the same if you do it right. So she brings a lot to the table here. Our next guest is Adana Moriarty, and she's the co-founder and creative director for Pro Book Launch, an AI-powered book marketing assistant designed to help authors simplify their marketing, amplify their reach, and stay connected with readers long after launch. And if you guys have ever seen what a launch looks like, it goes up in pre-sale, it hits a peak about a week in, and then it drops like a thud, like a boulder has hit your book. So her tool can really help you avoid that as well. And our third guest is Gary McDermott, and he is a motivational speaker, private investor, and retired naval officer known as the cash flow engineer. And he's gone from humble beginnings to international success. He inspires audiences to take control of their goals and build lasting wealth. And he is actually my partner on the Perfect Reader Playbook. A lot of this was his idea he created for his book, and he's been a client for about a year now. But I think he does more for me than I do for him. But keep paying me, Gary. No.
Thank you.
All right, you guys. So let's get started with this. The first thing I want to know is what does author platform mean to you in 2026? Because it seems like it's been shifting a lot. Adana, last summer, Amazon changed every algorithm. So it does mean different things. Do you want to take that first?
Yeah, sure. Thanks so much for having me. I think that when we talk about author platform, we should change the language to ecosystem. I really think that it is in this new kind of digital world, like we can't do things like we did 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. So when we're looking at it, I mean, this A10 change, which is what happened in July with Amazon, where they just, they shook up the algorithm. One of the reasons they did that is because of AI, because they were getting so much garbage written books out of AI that they wanted to make sure that, they are elevating authors who are doing the work. So when we talk about an ecosystem, it is social media, it is your website, it is newsletter, it is driving traffic from outside into your Amazon sales funnel, basically. So if you don't have any of that, even if you buy ads for Amazon, they're not going to put your book at the top like they would when they have outside stuff coming in to show them that there's real interest in the book. So, I mean, that's kind of how I'm looking at 2026, which is, just building ecosystems for authors so they can elevate their book and they can show it, because I really think that without that, I mean, like your book can exist, but if you don't build and you don't work for it, it doesn't matter. Nobody's ever going to know it's out there.
Yeah, and it's a lot of work. Tracy, so you are combining podcast and authorship together. And we've had so many conversations. It's the same thing with that audience building is it's very slow if you don't build that audience first for your podcast. Can you address that a little bit? Because it's really author platform building is podcast platform building.
Yeah, they're actually the same, which is why we have so many authors and podcasters that overlap across and cross both things. What I always say is that your platform is your owned media. So we talk about owned, earned, and paid media. You've heard that all the time. But if you don't own that platform, then all the money, all the time, all the energy you spent putting into it does you no good. And today, that owned platform includes what is feeding AI about you out there. So that's actually where we're earning. There is really not much more earned media as there used to be. There's very little. Almost all of earned media and paid media have merged together. So if you don't pay, you're not earning. With the exception of AI, you can earn AI through a lot of content. So you can earn the positioning on ChatGPT. So we're actually one of the top recommended podcast hosting companies on ChatGPT, also on Google Gemini. And it's just because we have way more content than anyone else. So imagine if the fuel to your platform, the fuel to the audience growth you want is your content. And if you only put your book in it once, you don't have enough tank to make it where you want to go. You
Mhm.
just don't. So you've got to have some kind of content production that feeds that all the time. The really great news is that it doesn't matter when you wrote that content. So, I mean, Juliet was talking about Inc. articles. I used to write, I wrote over 400 articles for Inc. magazine. I have repurposed them 3 times. So I'm about to try it a fourth time and see what I can do with them again. But since I started writing for them gosh, I can't even remember how long ago it was, 2018, maybe 2017, 2018 has been so long since I started writing for them. I have used them again and again and again to fuel the platform and to keep my website ranking, to keep my social media flooded with interesting ideas and concepts. And everything's aligned because I wrote that and because it was all aligned into a concept of my column at the time. So if you're producing your content in a particular message and direction that is drawing that and attracting that audience, your platform is going to build. There isn't much else you have to do except keep that alignment going.
Yeah, and I loved you said that about the paid and the earned merging because when people come to us for book marketing, you're basically buying things to play the algorithm. That's all you're doing. Everything has become algorithmic, and it's really hard to have organic reach these days
It's
because of
really
that.
hard. You're absolutely right. And I hate to say this because I really wanted my company and my platform and the way that everything worked to be something that you could do organically. It is just no longer possible because of the amount of money that's being spent by the big guys. And
Mhm.
so when you have that huge contrast, there's just no way. So we're always looking for fractional ways to be able to do that. We do that with Julia and our author promo cast and some of the other things that we build in because you've got to have some things that are at least giving you a little bit of a little bit of go along the way. You got to fill with the gas and it's getting expensive everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. So, Gary, you came out as a brand new author when we started working together, and you had put together this amazing program. What prompted you to do that? And I think originally you did it more for businesses versus book because you were an investor, but prompted you to put all that together because it is really an amazing like 2 year book marketing plan that we've done with this.
Well, it's hard to say kinda where the inspiration came from, but in my past, so I was, I'm retired from the Navy, and in the Navy, I was in the nuclear power field, and whenever you get put into a certain role, they change every 2 years. So, usually for me, being an engineer, I tend to whenever I have to take a new job or a task, I want to study it and then develop something so that it could be executed pretty efficiently in the future. So when I kinda ended up as an author, not necessarily by design, it was like, "Well, now what do I do?" So that was kinda where we had some early conversations, but then I wanted to systematize the whole platform creation, just to wrap my head around it, and then that was kind of a lot of what you see with just wrapping my head around it was experimenting because AI has kind of taken us to another level with our efficiency of time that it made sense to just kind of put this out there and see how it could apply for anybody that might be in the same shoes. The same way that I became a speaker was, how do I help somebody transitioning from the military where you're getting pulled every which way and you don't even know what you want to do as a person? How do you get a system around that? And so that was the same, 5-step method that I came up with for myself on how to set a goal that you want to do and how to achieve it. So it's just really just a matter of, I'm in this boat. I need to figure out how to keep it from sinking and then how to get it to sort of that paradise island that we all want to go to. And that was what I did with the AI behind the Perfect Reader Playbook, which, yeah, was initially for business entrepreneurship, but repurposed when I needed it for the book.
Yeah. And it works so well because it was set up for nonfiction businesses, and that's mostly what we handle is nonfiction authors in that way. So, Tracy, what types of books really, or what kind of podcasts really lend themselves to naturally to book adaptation? Because I know we've been doing it a little bit backwards. We've been taking book people and have them doing limited edition podcasts, but there's so many podcasts out there that could really do this with books as well.
Well, that's the crux of everything that we have is that a lot of my clients and a lot of podcasters have a ton of content, right? And they're not using it properly. They're not installing it into their platform. And so when we look at the ecosystem of that content, we want to see it go from video to audio to blog to social share. And we want to see it go through that. But what do you do with it afterwards? Is that done? Because social's just a drop in the bucket. You just drop it and then, maybe you'll share it in Evergreen and you'll share it again, but that's about it. But what do you do with it after that? And so the idea of turning it into articles and then turning it into books is absolutely part of the model of keeping that information circulating. Because now you don't have to do the work the other way where you had to create the content to promote the book. You've already got the content to promote the book because it is in the book. And so it makes the whole system flow. So if you're thinking about you've written your book and you start your podcast, why not turn that next set of chapters into the next book, into the follow-up book, into the next things that you want to talk about, into the support system for whatever your author book is. It's ideal here. We both, Juliet and I, deal with a lot of what you would call nonfiction, a lot of business entrepreneurs, a lot of people promoting their businesses, their core skill sets, their topics. So from that side of things, this is how it works. Entertainment's a little bit different, quite a bit different, actually. And so
Yeah.
when we look at that ecosystem, right, we want it to become a circle and not a line.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So, Adana, your platform addresses so many mistakes that authors make because they are moving from, I'll take this in the nonfiction. Let's say you're an engineer like Gary, you've written a book, but you know nothing about publishing. And there's so much misinformation out there. Can you talk about what are some of those constant, or not constant, but common launch mistakes that people make that your system really addresses?
I mean, I think it comes down to understanding marketing. And if you don't understand marketing and what good marketing looks like, if you're indie and you're self publishing and you're trying to DIY something and you don't have the budget to hire a publicist, like, how do you actually know what is good? Like, what is good visibility? What is it going to look like? If you send out a press release, do you even know to send out a press release? So, I mean, what we actually did with Pro Book Launch is we took our workflow and, made it into something that's accessible for kind of like the layperson, right? Where if you can't afford to hire a publicist, which a lot of indie authors can't. I mean, I don't know how much you charge, but I know how much we charge. And it's not a cheap go, even for like a 3-month campaign. And I think that the biggest thing I see is that we are not building our platform in advance, right? We are thinking that everything starts as we are approaching launch, maybe pre-sale, but if you do that, you're dead in the water when you actually launch because it takes years to build your platform. So, I mean, really what should happen is you start building it the moment you conceptualize your book. I tell people before they start writing, which sounds crazy. I know that sounds crazy, but I mean, it takes forever to build your social media. I mean, like Tracy said, I mean, organic is almost impossible. Instagram did make a change in the last year, which has done away with things like hashtags. So it is becoming a little bit more easy if you utilize your stories to create organic growth. But man, it's hard. I mean, I work with clients for years to get their social media up enough that when they launch a book, they have some kind of followers, you know? So I think that's probably the biggest thing we see is that you're not starting early enough because they don't understand that. I mean, how does somebody who hasn't worked in marketing have any idea what they should be doing in advance? We actually have a year to launch checklist that you can get on our website, which is kind of nice because it's just, a year out, 6 months out, 3 months out, a month out, week of, whatever, and it has, it's just a list that you can kind of go through to make sure that you're doing the steps. But outside of that, I don't know. I mean, I think it's really hard. I think it's really hard to be an indie author in this world, and everything changes all the time. Even sometimes I'm like, I don't know what's going on.
It is, it's all changing really fast. You're so right about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, it
it
changes.
is.
It's a quick thing. So I think that that's probably the most common mistake that I see with indie authors is that they are not starting building their platform marketing in advance. And you don't have to be used car salesman marketing. You just have to start working that entire ecosystem. Have a website, start your social media, start trying to grow a newsletter because weirdly, email newsletters are still the best way to sell anything there is, which has been like that since the internet came out in the 90s. It's strange. Work all those, get on podcasts, start your own podcast, start all of that stuff a year, 2 years in advance. Like the older it is when your book launches, the better chance you have of selling books.
Yeah, that is so true. That's one of the things with the reader playbook is we go through the science of marketing. So there's layers to it that you start a year out, and we have the same problem with our publishing company, Adana, that people come when the book is ready, and by then you don't have a funnel set up. Most of them don't have a website. Very few of the people that come to us actually have a lead magnet and a funnel and a way to build that list and that audience, and they're not doing content. They're not putting out any content at all consistently. So, Gary, one of the things that you did on the playbook, and I think this falls into it, is you had a very broad category. You had goals. How many books are out there on goals? And so you took a very broad topic and put it into the playbook and really niched it down. How would you talk to authors about doing that? Because I think there's a lot of that. I get leadership books every week. I get somebody on my calendar as a leadership book. It's saturated. So how did you do that with that goals book in mind? How to really get it down so it was niched well?
There's a couple different ways, that I would do it, whether it was for myself or if I was kind of sharing it with other people that have businesses. So for myself, and I guess in general terms, aligning the message to the target audience is really what the key is. So if your message is too broad, then it kind of one of the mantras that is helpful to remember this is the riches are in the niches. So the better you're able to dial down the audience to a specific, whether it's a niche or a demographic or a target market, that that is when you start having a little bit more of the success. And so with a business, you could look back and you could just say, what are my top clients? If I go back and I look at how am I getting my revenue, what is the top revenue stream or what are the top 5 clients, where are the top 5, 10 clients coming from? And then how do I get more of those top 5 or 10 clients? Like what is the message that resonates with them? So it's kind of an exercise to understand that the riches are in the niches and that we can't be everyone to all. And so how do we look at what is most likely to get us to be successful? It's not to say that you can't have more than one niche either. So if somebody is very broad and doesn't understand the concept, then it could be that you just have to have two avatars. And so ultimately, all of the science, everything that we put in the Perfect Reader Playbook is just designed to bring that out so that we can take the message and align it to the ideal audience so that no matter what stage this audience is or this customer on the customer journey, you're hitting them with the right messaging. So if they don't even know that they have a problem, even though you have the solution, there's not a fit unless you're communicating to that type of a customer that is not aware that they even have a problem. Once they start going along that journey and they realize they have a problem because you've nurtured them and they now see like, oh wow, yeah, maybe I do have a problem. Maybe I should consider some solutions. Now you're hitting them with messaging that is in the solutions oriented phase. And so along anywhere along that journey, we have identified what the pain points are of that ideal audience, and we design messaging around the alignment between each stage in the customer journey.
Yeah, we do. And going back to what Adana said on that, that you need to be a year or two out when you start this. Phase one of the reader playbook is the unaware phase, and it's twofold. It's number one, people don't know that they have a problem. And number two, they're unaware of who you are. So that's why you spend so long in that first phase, is you have two big hurdles to overcome to get yourself out there. And then the other thing I want to mention about the playbook that I thought was brilliant, Gary, and it's probably the part that people have the most problem with, is when we ask who your competitors are, we probably have 75% of the people there who own businesses who don't know who their competitors are. So if you have designed a business and you don't know what the messaging is for those other people, and you know what their platform looks like and what their brand looks like, you're kind of going to be a mess. You may be offering the wrong things, writing about the wrong things, and appearing as a copycat versus, you know, like an industry leader and rebel out there. So I think that's a big thing in the playbook that a lot of people don't know about too.
I wanna mention something about that, Juliet, because I think
Mhm.
this was when we did our brand training last week. It was just last week, wasn't it?
Yes, last week.
It was just last week when we did that. One of the things is that it has a competitor section in it, and one of the things I discovered as I was building that AI tool and thinking about how to tell people that you have the wrong competitors, which is what I have to tell my clients so often, right? So my clients are like, "I'm podcaster. I wanna be Joe Rogan." And like, you don't have millions of dollars of marketing budget. You don't have 100 people on your team. It is not going to happen. So, how do we get you to understand where your real stretch competitor is? We don't want somebody who's behind you. We don't want somebody who's next to you. We want somebody just out ahead of you. But how do we find them for you? And we found that the best way was not to ask you, but to tell you who your competitors were.
Yes.
And what would happen is when we would give you this list of 9, and we would pick the 9 based on bloggers, YouTubers, and podcasters so that it would give you somebody who is prolific with content. So it's really who's talking the loudest in your niche. And that's really your competitor. And when they would look at that 9 and then they'd start to go explore, they'd be like, oh my gosh, I didn't know this person. And they have the exact audience I want.
Mhm.
And that's when it would start to resonate with them. But the more we asked them who they wanted, the worse the results
Yeah.
were. So we are in our own way as business owners, as authors. We are always in our own way of where we think we know better than the listener. And the listener is making those choices. The listener is choosing who to listen to, whose book to pick up, what to read. They are making the choices and so we have to tap into that and listen more to what the audience wants and creates that alignment that Gary talked about.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the things we ask in the Reader Playbook is, what are the other programs and services you offer? Because a lot of times the book is a little all over the place and doesn't connect with what they sell exactly. And that doesn't mean you go out. I mean, we've all seen those books where, you know, the end of every chapter is one big connect with me, go into my funnel. But it does need to be something that inspires them to take next steps with you. if you're a nonfiction author on there, a
Oh, I
demo.
just
So
want to say something. It's really interesting because all of us are doing something that is almost the same. It all
yeah,
does the same thing. It all brings the non marketer into a place that they understand their voice, they understand their messaging, and they understand how to position themselves. But it's like different stages of the journey.
yeah, that's exactly. And
You're seeing
it's
Juliet's beautiful alignment here.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, it's great just I mean, I don't this is the first time I've met all of you, and I'm totally fascinated by all of it. So, it was just an observation. I think it's really neat.
yeah. And Dana, we talked earlier about people are going to chat GPT. And a lot of writers are worried about a couple things that AI is going to take their creative juices away, which I can see that because it is an outlet for a lot of people. But they also think that when they're using these AI programs, that they're taking jobs away from people, which I don't think that's really valid because this is just helping you. But the even bigger thing is like any of these programs we have, you could go over to ChatGPT and you could ask it questions, but the thing is we all have experience in prompting. And if you're not asking things the right way, you're not going to get the right answers. So tell me a little bit about when you put Pro Book Launch together, you're really addressing areas that authors have no experience in and allowing them to get the right answers versus going to ChatGPT and saying, what is metadata and where should my book be? And getting
I
a
mean,
generic answer.
if people even know to ask that. I want to address the first thing first because I do think that, we have a responsibility always to kind of, address that pain point and, the ethicalness of using AI because I do think that there are people out there who are using it nefariously, right?
Mhm.
They're going in, they're stealing other people's work. Like we talked recently on our podcast to a gentleman who was talking about how bestsellers were getting copycatted and those books were selling better than the bestsellers because people were duped. So that's gross. Like I just want to say that. I think that's gross behavior and I think that when we talk about AI, we should always talk about that. But to that end, I also don't think that at the moment, that AI is really stealing jobs away from me or you or, even like cover designers at the moment because the people who are using that for their book couldn't afford to go hire them anyway. And I think that that is important to say that, it's not that they're choosing AI instead of hiring a professional in the industry. It's that if they don't use AI, they wouldn't have access to help at all, right? So they would just be adrift. So I those are my things. So, I mean, what we did with Pro Book Launch was we took our workflow. So, we literally took our workflow. I built our product, which is called Launch Master. It's inside our greater ecosystem of Pro Book Launch for my own daily workflow. I was doing the same thing every day, every day, every day, every day. And I was trying to figure out how to streamline my own process, right? I mean, because there are things, keywords, categories, comp books, like finding all of those things can take weeks, sometimes months to position a book that we would have inside, for our clients. And I was just trying to find a way that like I could have more free time is really what it was. And so I started playing with prompting. ChatGPT was new. Just started playing with it. And the more I played with it, the better results I started getting. At first, I would have to take it. I'd spend hours and hours editing it so it didn't read like AI and, whatever. And then I learned about custom GPTs and I was like, ooh, I'm going to take all of this. I had created a little prompt book to help people and I put that into ChatGPT and it was crazy. I mean, our entire process takes 6 minutes inside ChatGPT, but it's all of my work. It's all of my research. It's making sure that it spits out good marketing copy, because I think that you can go in and you can ask it things, or you can say, "Write me a press release." You can say whatever, but if you don't know what that is supposed to look like, you don't have any idea if it's going to give you anything good. You might think it is, you might read it and be like, oh, that's good. And then you send it out and nothing gets picked up. So I think that, like you have to do some research and work on your end, even if you're going to utilize AI for yourself to make sure that you have an idea of what it's spitting out is something you can use. Most of the
Mhm.
time, it's not. It reads like a romance novel.
Yeah, that's true. The cover design, can I just say for a minute? Maybe not the best tool to use AI for. We had someone who beautiful brought us a beautiful, beautiful cover that she got off of, I think, ChatGPT. We gave it to the designer and he said, this is going to cost $9,000. Now, why $9,000? Because there were 136 layers of what Adobe would have had to do to achieve that particular cover. And the cover was beautiful, don't get me wrong, but she wasn't going to spend $9,000 to have it. So you have to be careful when you create stuff over on ChatGPT because it's probably not the right DPI to actually create a cover from. So somebody has to recreate that work. And
Right.
of course, it did a great job. So, but it was going to be very expensive to recreate. So it didn't really get rid of a job. It maybe made that job much more complicated.
Yeah. I just want to say that, I mean, for me, like, I think that if people are going to be DIYing their book stuff, like, my goal, I just want to help them. Like, that's really what I'm
Yeah.
trying to do. I just want to help them and help them, at a more cost effective rate because, I mean, you know, publicists can cost like $10,000 for a 3-month campaign. I mean, most people don't have that money.
And they don't guarantee results. I mean, I have
Yeah.
friends that have paid $6,000 to get an article in some magazine, and they pitch 10 magazines, and nobody picks it up, and they got now a $6,000 article that hasn't been pitched. I mean, that's been pitched that hasn't been picked up too. I want to ask all of you guys, what do you think, and each of you can answer, what do you think the most underused strategy for building an enduring author brand is? And you can relate this to podcasts as well because they are the same when it comes to audience building. Who wants to go first?
I'll be happy to go first. The thing is that so the two parts of that is that if in order underused, meaning that it must be working somewhere, right? So there is somebody who's actually using it and it's really working. And so, but do you see that? Do you understand that? And that's the difference between those that might be paying to have this stuff done and not understanding how it's working, what it's working. So I think the most underused part of any kind of platform building, whether it's for authors or for podcasters, is using the right paid models. We're
Mm.
overusing some of these just because they're expensive, we think they must work better, and I can tell you that I've seen them and they don't. That's the overpriced, sometimes packages that big marketing firms were offering just aren't working underneath themselves anymore because their little pieces and parts are starting to break with the algorithms that they're built of. And so these upstart little small ones that are coming up are doing tremendous work and value, but they aren't going to work forever. So you do have to just say, hey, I'm going to try this. I'm going to just, we would never 5 years ago have ever used paid chart ranking for podcasts.
Mm.
Now it is our number one tool. And the two things that it does for us are crazy things that it gets you so that you get more Spotify and Apple followers. That's its actual goal, not to rank on the chart. It's being marketed for the vanity of ranking on the charts, which we always said, oh, that's a
Uh-huh.
vanity thing. Like, why do you even want to spend money to do it? If you've got money, spend it somewhere else that could do you more value. But it's getting followers because the AI algorithm that the charts are built on is recommending to those listeners, on Apple and Spotify, these shows that are ranking in the charts because it's not smart enough to know what a good show is and isn't. So it pushes you into that place. The second thing that it does, and it's this hidden thing, is it helps you dial in your niche. So when
Okay.
Gary was talking about the riches and the niches, so many of my clients think they know better because they get to choose their Apple category. They think they know better. And if they're going to do it like a book where they're going to dial into the most tiny niche you can, but we had one, actually, I know you know him, Kevin, Sports Chasers podcast. We moved him from a niche of sports dash football, sports dash baseball, sports dash. He had all of these categories, and we moved him to news dash sports, and he's killing it. He's like number 3.
Mhm.
So it just teaches you some of the things that you can't do for a very low dollar amount. So some of these new tools and new ideas, we need to not be afraid to test out. And I think that's the underused part of everything.
Yeah, and I can attest to that because I asked them to set up a demo for my podcast book people. And her husband, who runs it, actually called me last week and he's like, "Would you like to pay for this? Because you are now at number 17 and you're beating out Amy Porterfield." And of course, my ego went, "Well, of course I'd like to pay for that." Because I moved from probably the mid 60s in that niche right up into, I think it was number 17. So it does actually work. Hey, Dana, what do you see that's really underused?
I don't know. I feel like everything is underused. Um, I don't know if it's so much underused, but not used right. I think I think authors are shifting away from websites, and I think that's a mistake because they're like, I have social media, and but your website is the home of everything that you do. It's not just like for somebody Googles you, your website comes up. It's a place for you to put your books that you sell. It's a place for you to put your events that you're going to do, your book signings, your speakings, your podcasts, appearances. It is a place for people to contact you and not just readers. I mean, it is a place for the potential for agents and producers to contact you. And if you don't have a website and you're not launched yet and you're hoping to get an agent or a producer to option your book and you don't have one, they will never give you the time of day. That is one of the first things that agents do when you query them is if they like, your query and the pages that you sent, the next thing they do is they go look for your website. And if you don't have one, they will throw your pages in the trash. So I think that that's probably the place that I see that's starting to become underutilized or not used right. I mean, it's so important. It's so important to have a good author website
You
on
know what?
Podcast too.
Yeah.
yeah, and on genre. I mean, if you have a website and you wrote a thriller and your website looks like a business non-fiction book page, like you have to like it's not going to attract your readers because they're going to be like, oh, that guy's corporate. Not, that it's some thriller, dark and twisty, whatever, or horror or romance, or you need to go out and look at other people in your genre and see what their websites are doing, see what kind of information they have on them, also with their social media. Like all of that stuff is to me underutilized. Like we can't just, throw up a website and call it a day.
Yeah. And you just pointed out something really unique there too that authors don't really understand is that website, that email list. So those funnels, the email list, those are all things that you own. They're your assets. When you're talking about, I don't need it because of social media belongs to Mark Zuckerberg and I don't know if it's Microsoft or Reid Hoffman these days, but LinkedIn belongs to somebody else. And you can be shut down and lose your audience in a minute, or you're either canceled or an algorithm changes and you've just lost all visibility there. So, really developing those assets that you own that no one can take away is a big deal. And that's
Yeah.
one of the reasons you need that.
Your social media should like be the top of your funnel, basically, right? Like you're using
Mhm.
social media to push people to your website. That's it. That's really what it is. And then you have them sign up for your newsletter and you have a captive audience. They're not in this sea of, news feed and Instagram or Facebook or TikTok where they might see you, but they scroll to the next. I mean, the goal is always to get them into a place where you have complete control over your audience. It's why communities are becoming such a big thing, like Fluent and Circle communities are becoming such a big thing because, like you said, social media at any moment, like your entire audience could disappear right now while we're talking.
Yeah. And Tracy and I experienced that. We used to have a marketing show in 2020, and Juliet was always getting blocked. And we had to go over to Tracy's feed because Facebook didn't like the things I was saying. And it wasn't just the you're off of they would harass me in very subtle ways, like, oh, you can't go live today.
Mhm.
So you have to be careful. Gary, what do you think is the most underutilized marketing that authors
But
experience?
as far as underutilized marketing or just underutilized tools, I would say what I thought was with a lot of us are talking about AI, using AI right now. I thought it was underutilized that a lot of people, entrepreneurs especially, did not already have their own AI sort of clone or AI alter
Mm,
ego that can basically, I mean, one of the things in business is how do you recreate yourself so that you're not doing all of the work? And so it was a little fascinating that we've progressed so much with AI, but a lot of folks don't even have something to kind of replace them. And now that you can build AI agents and a team of them, like why not start with just yourself? So that's something that we do. We have talked about with the Perfect Reader Playbook is that it's pretty easy to also add just your own, just clone yourself so that you want to write copy, or maybe you want to write copy and you're not even sure if it sounds like you. When you're training an employee, there's human error. But when you have an ironclad brand standards or a style guide, the computer will follow that. Sometimes too much, where you have to like tweak it and then have it loosen back up. If you say do not um avoid overhype, right? And then now you become really boring. So there's a little bit of science in how to dial it in, but as far as something that's underutilized, I would say that if I survey a lot of the audiences that I go to, less than half have their own assistant that kinda exists to basically take as much off of their plate.
yeah.
I
I'm
could
laughing here because my AI this morning, I gave it a problem and it said, you should go out and run 8 miles today and get some sweat in so you can think about this. And I was like, how did you know that? And he's like, because you've asked me questions about your exercise routines. And I was like, ooh, that's kind of creepy. That's kind of creepy, you know that.
My team calls my clone Tracy 2, TOO, and they ask her questions all the time. And so I found just the stupid little things like the daily little questions, dropped dramatically since we put the clone into the chat. I did it just to test it and play with it, but my team is using it and we have like 50 people. So you've got a lot of people playing with it and they're testing it and they're like, yeah, she gives better answers and faster than you do, Tracy. So and the funny story is yesterday, my daughter had a job interview. She's 16 and I'm out driving my other daughter somewhere. And so I'm in the car and she's messaging me, what do you wear to an interview? And I don't answer because I'm driving. And as soon as I get there, the second message pops up and she says, if you don't call me back, I'm about to ask ChatGPT. And so of course, I call her back and I say to her, you should wear slacks. And she goes, what slacks? I was like, oh my gosh, if we have to use a dictionary, then maybe you should use ChatGPT. So I had, what are slacks and what's a blouse? Like those are the two.
Oh my God.
Mom was no help at all. So sometimes our clones are better at switching up the languaging to our audience to get that alignment for how they understand what they really should do.
Oh, that's so funny. Did she get
uh,
the job?
She did. Yeah, and of course she sends me back in classic young generation style here. It says hashtag Linnea is employed in, all one word.
Okay.
Yeah.
I created a clone of myself and my workflow for our podcast because it was taking me like 4 to 6 hours to do all the editing, write all the copy, the social media posts, do the graphics, like all of that. And I've now gotten it down to I can do everything in the hour that I'm editing the sound by
That's cool.
using the GPT that I built. Like it's crazy.
That's so, so good.
Yeah.
That is exactly what we wanna see. We wanna see do-it-yourselfers And even in the production side of things, it should not be taking as long as people spend on it. You should be spending more time on the content part of it. Like, am I talking about the right thing? Am I talking to the right person? Spend more time on that than you do on the output and production of it.
Yeah,
Amen.
yeah. So I'm going to open it up for about 5 minutes of questions, and then I'll have you guys. Could you guys drop how to contact you into the chat here, and then we'll get to that at the end. Do you guys have any questions? Anybody in the audience have questions?
I can ask a question. I don't know what you mean by a GBT clone. Can you talk about what that is and like how you set it up? I'm not familiar with that terminology.
Who wants to take that?
So there's a couple of different options. So you can use gosh, I'm trying to think of some of the different companies and names. They're all different prices or everything. I think the Delphi is probably this most straightforward, easy. It's not the cheapest if to do a voice clone, but to do a straight clone, it's fairly inexpensive. I think it'll be like $100 a month or something like that. But the most important thing that all of these have is that you have to have a lot of content to feed it. You need about 10,000 words minimum, and some of them need 10,000 minutes. So it just depends on how qualified you want to get your clone. And so really most of these companies that sell them, I'm trying to think of there's one that starts with an H and now I can't think of what its name is, and it's a lot less expensive. And
Hello, is it hello something?
yeah, might be. And so I would go out and use one of those because if you're going to do it yourself and code your own GPT, it's much more complicated. And so doing it that way, it just the Delphi, and it's straightforward. They like input your information, and then you make adjustments to how long-winded do you want yourself, how fast do you want yourself to talk. If you're using the voice one, I talk fast, so I wanted mine faster. And then a lot of them have a back end where you can see what people are asking. So, like a good friend of Juliet's and mine, she was dealing with a very sick friend and been in the hospital a lot. She started talking, like literally calling up and talking to my AI to brainstorm things because she couldn't meet with me on a weekly basis like we used to. And so she would do that. And so I was finding behind the scenes, so I knew to touch base with her. I knew to check in with her because I could see what she was struggling with. So the ones that have rich reporting tools are really useful, especially in a book side. If you wanted to use it as your author, like, people can ask you questions about your book or whatever, you start to find out what the most interesting thing is that you should talk about on your next podcast or your next video or in your next social post. It's going to give you fodder and ideas. So make sure you get one that has a lot of reporting. And I will look that other one up while someone else gives their 2 cents on that.
Yeah, I have a couple things here. Hey Jen, 11 Labs.
Hey Jen,
Yeah,
that's the one.
yeah.
Hey Jen, it's a lot less expensive and it's fairly easy to set up. 11 Labs is the voice behind a lot of them, so its version takes a lot longer to set up if you don't have the tech skills. So I'd say Hey Jen and Delphi are my top two.
I think it also depends on what you need it for. I mean, like I basically just utilize custom GPTs inside ChatGPT. When I have been asking it to do something repetitively, I will create a custom GPT out of that. So, like, you can actually have it help you write itself to make a custom GPT so that then you can streamline your workflow. It really just depends on what you are trying to do with them. And I think that there's research in that to figure out like, what do I actually want out of like cloning myself? Do I need it to be like something that has a voice? Do I just need it to spit out copy? Do I need it to do this or that or the other thing? And that will help you find one that works for you.
Yeah, I use Perplexity, and Perplexity has a new browser called Comet that does a lot of the work. And there's also Perplexity Computer, which is brand new, that'll actually integrate tasks between programs. So I can have it do work in Go High Level. I just had it set up a whole new royalty program in Go High Level and connecting with Gmail and different things there. So you can actually have it do tasks for you for me, royalties are every month. So Gary, what about you? Gary uses everything, like I've got like a whole notebook of things he mentions.
Well, it's just, it's good that the tools always change. I mean, what worked for you really well for several years, could all of a sudden, not be as good, and it's just with any time, with any brand. So, it's helpful to have collaboration like this. I mean, I'm using, a lot I have Delphi. I'm using a lot of, the HeyGen with the 11 Labs. That has, been tremendous. I use that in several different companies. Also, there's a lot more kind of advanced stuff when you're building agents. There's even, AI that builds the agents. I mean, it just gets crazy because there's a lot of stuff that we had to do, using tools like N8N or Make, which is a little bit better than Zapier. And then now there's even AI that can kind of replace those tools. So a lot of stuff out there. I guess the point is there's low hanging fruit for anybody to at least start with getting your style guide, your brand and style guide for yourself and your business, and then it just makes everything that you have to do that much easier.
Yeah.
The one
Yes.
caution I wanna give, Juliet, just before everyone is that, all of us here, we have a lot of inherent knowledge that is built into every AI tool, experiences, things that work, things that didn't work. We have a lot of that under our belt already. And when you're just think, oh, well, the AI is so easy, I'm just going to go ask ChatGPT and I'll just do this. The reality is that you don't have those key learnings. That's really important part of when you decide to go use one, that underlying, how is it learning? How is it growing? What mistakes is it going to make? And do you have to handle that? Or are we already handling that for you? That's the difference between whether or not you want to just straight use Gemini, ChatGPT, Perplexity, or you want to use a tool that's built on those. Because that tool is likely built with a lot of inherent knowledge in it already. And it's taking you that extra leap. I mean, there's just so much that everyone here has learned about book launching, about podcast launching, about content creation, about social media that built into it already, into what we do, into the instructions that that it's given. So don't underestimate the value of using a tool from an expert.
Yeah, that was
That's
great
such good
advice. So,
advice. Yeah.
yeah, because you might have something that you're using it for inside of your business, but when it comes to launching a book or launching a podcast, you're not an industry insider, so you're not aware of the changes. So it is sometimes better to use a tool that someone like one of us has developed, because we do have that knowledge. And like Adana said, it changes all the time, what's going on out there.
It changes all the time, and I mean, it's like Tracy was saying even about her daughter, being able to have a touchstone of an expert inside the industry just elevates your entire positioning. So, I mean, like for what we do, if you utilize our system, it helps make sure that you're not accidentally putting weak marketing out into the world, right? Because we tested it for a year on our clients before we released it to the public. So, I mean, like we made sure that it was not giving out garbage copy. Like it's not giving out garbage material. And as we know, it's really easy inside AI to do that. And I just think that that's what I wanted was to make sure that people were getting good marketing material.
Yeah, exactly. Well,
I'm
thank you guys for being here today. Hopefully, you got something out of it. And this will be over on our YouTube channel and podcast as well. So you can go to Superbrand Publishing. It should be up on April 21st over there if you want to go through it. So thank you to everybody who showed up.